The scream sliced through the mansion's marble corridors like a shard of glass. Elena Harrington's knees slammed into the cold floor beside the nursery door, her maid's apron twisting in her fists as she stared at the empty cribs. 2 indentations still warm in the silk sheets. 2 tiny blankets dragged halfway across the rug. And on the windowsill, a single red rose, freshly cut, thorns dripping crimson where they'd scraped the paint. Her pulse detonated. Lily? Oliver. The names ripped out of her throat raw, desperate, already knowing no answer would come. Footsteps thundered behind her. Too heavy, too fast. She spun, heart jackknifing when she saw him. Not the billionaire. Not Alexander Wentworth in his tailored Brioni suits. Just Alex, the quiet gardener with calloused hands and storm-gray eyes, who was suddenly filling the doorway like he owned the shadows themselves. His gaze locked on the rose. On the blood. On her. They're gone, she choked out. Someone took them. His jaw flexed so hard she heard the click. Stay here. Voice low, lethal. Nothing like the soft-spoken man who'd handed her daisies over the hedge for the last 3 months. He was already moving, shoulders coiled tight, scanning the room like a predator who'd just realized the trap was meant for his own blood. Elena lunged after him. Alex, wait. He whirled, gripping her arms, grip bruising, eyes wild. I said stay. Then quieter, a crack in the steel. Please. She searched his face and saw something that made her stomach drop. Recognition. Terror. Guilt. The man she'd been secretly watching from kitchen windows. The one who hummed old jazz while pruning roses, who'd caught her crying over burnt toast and wordlessly slid a perfect omelet across the counter. Wasn't shaking because strangers had stolen Alexander Wentworth's children. He was shaking because they were his. Hey beautiful souls watching this right now. Yes you, where are you tuning in from? Drop your city in the comments and tell me how you're holding up tonight. If this hook just snatched your breath, smash that subscribe button so you never miss what happens when the gardener reveals who he really is. And when Elena has to decide if she'll risk everything for the man who's been lying to her from day one. Elena's lungs forgot how to work. The gardener's hands were still clamped around her arms, fingers digging in like he was holding himself together more than her. Moonlight knifed through the nursery window, cutting across his face, and for the first time she saw the scar that ran faint beneath the stubble. Too precise for yard work, too old for coincidence. You knew, she whispered. You knew they were in danger and you let me believe. I never let anyone believe anything. His voice cracked like a whip. I was trying to protect them. By pretending to be someone else. The words tasted like rust. By letting me fall for. She stopped herself, cheeks burning, because the truth had just slipped out naked between them. His eyes flared, gray turning molten silver. Elena! A crash exploded downstairs. Glass. Then laughter, high, tinkling champagne drunk. Victoria Langford's voice floated up the grand staircase, syrupy and vicious. Darling, the children are simply dying to see their new playroom. Come down before the surprise gets cold. Elena's blood turned to ice. Alex's grip tightened until it hurt. Listen to me. His whisper scraped her ear, urgent, terrified. Whatever happens, do not trust her. Not one word. Another crash. Closer. He released her so fast she stumbled. In one heartbeat he'd yanked open the nursery's hidden panel, the one Elena had always assumed was for linen storage, and pulled out a matte black pistol that definitely didn't belong to any gardener. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Who are you? He met her eyes, and for the first time the mask was gone. Alexander Wentworth, he said. And the woman I'm about to marry just kidnapped my kids to force me to sign over the company tonight. He cocked the gun. Stay behind me, Elena. Or run. But if you stay, I can't promise you'll make it out of this house alive. Footsteps on the stairs now, heels clicking like a countdown. Elena looked at the empty cribs. At the blood on the rose. At the man who'd lied to her every single day for 3 months. And who was now the only thing standing between 2 innocent babies and whatever hell Victoria had waiting downstairs. She stepped forward, not back. Give me the second gun, she said. His head snapped toward her, shock ripping across his face. She held out her hand, steady as steel. You want to save them? Then we do it together. The footsteps reached the landing. Alexander's lips curved, half pride, half fear, and he pressed a smaller pistol into her palm. Safety's off, he murmured. Don't hesitate. The nursery door flew open. Victoria stood framed in silk and diamonds, smiling like she'd already won. Behind her, 2 armed men dragged the sobbing twins by their tiny wrists. Elena's finger tightened on the trigger. This was no longer about secrets or broken trust. This was war. And the maid was done playing nice. Elena's finger hovered a hair's breadth from the trigger, every heartbeat screaming at her to pull it. Victoria's red-lacquered smile never wavered. Lily and Oliver dangled between the two mercenaries like rag dolls, cheeks streaked with tears, tiny mouths gagged with silk scarves that probably cost more than Elena's yearly salary. Alexander's voice came low behind her ear, steady as stone. Eyes on me, Elena. Not them. If you look at the kids, you'll freeze. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the animal roar in her skull that wanted to tear Victoria apart with her bare hands. But Alexander's words anchored her. She dragged her gaze up, met his, and something electric snapped between them. Trust. Raw. Unspoken. The kind that gets forged in the exact second you realize you'd both die for the same two babies. Victoria tilted her head, diamond earrings flashing like warning beacons. Alexander, darling. Put the toys away. Sign the papers and your brats get to keep breathing. One of the mercenaries yanked Oliver higher. The 2-year-old's muffled scream shredded the air. Elena felt Alexander's entire body go rigid behind her. Felt the moment the man who'd spent 3 months pretending to be gentle snapped his leash. But he didn't move. Not yet. Instead he spoke, soft, almost conversational. Victoria. Look at me. Victoria's eyes flicked to him, amused. You still think this is about money, he said. It's not. He shifted, just enough for Elena to feel the heat of him against her back. It's about the night you pushed my wife off that balcony 4 years ago. The room went dead silent. Victoria's smile flickered. Once. Alexander's voice dropped to a whisper only Elena could hear. On 3, you take the guy on the left. I've got the right. Then we get our kids. Our kids. The words slammed into Elena's chest like a second heartbeat. Victoria recovered, laugh sharp as broken crystal. Ancient history, darling. Sign. Or I start with the girl. She reached into her clutch, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a syringe filled with something clear and vicious. Elena's vision tunneled. Alexander counted, barely audible. 1. Victoria stepped forward, heels clicking. 2. The mercenary on the left smirked, shifting his grip on Lily. 3. Elena moved first. She didn't think. She just fired. The bullet took the mercenary in the shoulder. He dropped Lily with a howl. Alexander's shot followed a split second later, center mass on the second guard. Oliver hit the carpet and scrambled toward them on all fours. Chaos exploded. Victoria lunged for the syringe, face twisted into something feral. Alexander tackled her, slamming her wrist against the floor until the needle skittered away. Elena dove for the kids, rolling them behind the overturned crib, shielding them with her body as bullets chewed the wallpaper above her head. Then silence. Just panting. And Victoria's broken laugh. Alexander had her pinned, knee in her back, gun pressed to her temple. It's over. Victoria spat blood. Is it? She flicked her gaze to Elena, to the toddlers clinging to Elena's neck like she was the only safe thing left in the world. You think she'll still want you when she learns what you did to your wife? Victoria hissed. How you drove her to that edge. Alexander's finger whitened on the trigger. Elena stood slowly, Lily in one arm, Oliver in the other. She walked straight to Victoria until the woman had to crane her neck to meet her eyes. Shut up, Elena said quietly. Then she looked at Alexander. His face was ash, eyes begging her to ask, to make him say it aloud. Elena shifted the twins higher against her hip. I don't care what happened 4 years ago, she told him. I care what happens right now. And right now, these babies need their father. Not a ghost. Something shattered behind Alexander's eyes. Something that had been chained up for years. Victoria laughed again, until Elena kicked the syringe across the floor and crushed it beneath her heel. Call the police, Elena said. Tell them Victoria Langford just confessed to murder. Alexander stared at her like she was the first sunrise he'd seen in half a decade. Then he pulled out his phone with shaking hands. While they waited for the sirens, Elena sank to the nursery rug, cradling both toddlers against her chest. Alexander dropped beside her, forehead pressed to hers, breathing like a man who'd forgotten how lungs worked. Lily reached up, chubby fingers tangling in Elena's hair. Mama, she lisped around the gag's residue. Elena's heart stopped. Alexander made a sound, half sob, half prayer, and wrapped his arms around all 3 of them so tightly she felt his tears soak her collar. In the distance, red and blue lights began to paint the walls. Elena closed her eyes and let herself believe, for the first time in her entire life, that some families are chosen, not born. Hey, you gorgeous humans still here with me. Tell me in the comments. When was the last time a story made you cry like this? If your heart is currently living in this nursery with us, smash that subscribe button so you don't miss. 6 months earlier, Alexander Wentworth slammed his fist into the mahogany desk so hard the crystal decanter jumped, spilling amber scotch across the prenup documents like blood on a crime scene. Victoria Langford didn't flinch. She crossed her legs in the leather armchair opposite him, silk dress riding up just enough to remind him why he'd ever let her into his bed. Her smile was perfect, teeth straight from a dentist's wet dream, eyes green as the emeralds he'd bought her last month. Darling, she purred. It's just paperwork. Protection for both of us. Alexander's laugh scraped out bitter. Protection? This says if I die, you get everything. The company, the estate, even custody of Lily and Oliver. Her hand fluttered to her chest, feigning hurt. They're practically mine already. I've been more of a mother to them than. Don't. His voice sliced the air. Don't you dare say her name. Victoria's eyes narrowed, just a flicker, but enough to make his gut twist. For years since Sophia's body had been found crumpled at the base of that balcony railing. For years of whispers, accident? Suicide? Or something worse. The police had ruled it inconclusive. No evidence. No witnesses. But Alexander knew better. He'd seen the bruises on Sophia's wrists that last week. Heard the arguments echoing through the halls. Arguments about money, about control, about Victoria's innocent friendship with his wife that had turned venomous overnight. Victoria leaned forward now, voice honeyed venom. Sign it, Alexander. Or the wedding's off. He stared at the pen she'd slid across the desk. Felt the walls closing in. This woman had slithered into his life after Sophia's death, offering comfort, then passion, then promises of a future for his twins. But lately, the late-night calls she thought he didn't hear. The way she'd eyed the safe in his study like it held her secrets, not his. No, he couldn't marry her. Not without knowing. I need time, he said finally, shoving the papers away. Victoria stood in one fluid motion, lips curling. Time? You've had 4 years to grieve. I'm not waiting forever. She stormed out, heels stabbing the Persian rug. Alexander sank back, rubbing his temples. He needed proof. Needed to watch her without the mask she wore for him. An idea sparked, insane, reckless. But what choice did he have? By dawn, he'd made the calls. Faked a business trip to Europe. Hired a body double to jet off in his place. Then he shaved the beard he'd grown in mourning, dirted his hands with actual soil from the greenhouse, and slipped into the staff quarters through the service entrance. Alexander Wentworth, billionaire CEO of Wentworth Enterprises, became Alex the gardener. Invisible. Watching. His first day on the job, dirt under his nails and sweat soaking his flannel shirt, he nearly blew it all. He was clipping hedges near the kitchen window when she appeared. Elena Harrington, the new maid, hired 3 weeks ago on glowing references he hadn't bothered to check, too buried in his suspicions of Victoria. She was elbow-deep in suds at the sink, humming something soft and off-key, her dark hair escaping its bun in wild curls that caught the sunlight like they were alive. Alexander froze mid-snip. She turned, sensing him, and their eyes locked through the glass. Hers were brown, deep as the earth he was pretending to tend. Full of something he hadn't seen in years, kindness without agenda. She smiled, waved with a soapy hand. His heart, dead for so long, stuttered back to life. Then Victoria's voice barked from inside. Elena! The twins' lunch, now! Elena's smile vanished. She nodded quickly, but not before Alexander saw the flash of steel in her eyes. That night, alone in the gardener's cottage, he couldn't stop thinking about her. About how she'd scooped up Lily when the toddler tripped in the garden earlier, dusting her off with whispers that made the girl giggle instead of cry. About how Victoria had barely glanced at the kids all day, too busy on her phone scheming God knows what. He needed to focus on Victoria, on uncovering her lies. But Elena, she was a distraction. A dangerous one. 2 weeks in, the distraction became impossible to ignore. He was mulching Rose beds at dusk when screams erupted from the pool house. Lily and Oliver, splashing unsupervised while Victoria relaxed with a martini. Oliver slipped. Went under. Alexander dropped the shovel and vaulted the fence without thinking. He plunged into the water fully clothed, scooping the choking toddler into his arms. Oliver, breathe, buddy, breathe. The boy coughed, clung to him like a lifeline. Victoria sauntered over, brows arched. The gardener plays hero? How quaint. Alexander bit back a retort, water dripping from his fake work boots. Then Elena burst from the house, apron flying. She took one look, Oliver safe, Lily wailing on the deck, and dropped to her knees beside them. Her hands were gentle on Oliver's back, rubbing circles until his sobs quieted. She looked up at Alexander. "Thank you," she whispered, voice breaking, eyes shining with something that hit him square in the chest. Attraction. Fierce. Undeniable. In that moment, dripping wet, lies piling up around him, he knew he was screwed. Because Elena Harrington wasn't just the maid. She was the one person who could see through his disguise. And if she did, everything would shatter. But worse, Victoria had watched the whole thing with calculating eyes. That night, Alexander overheard her on the phone from his hiding spot in the shadows. "The kids are getting attached to the staff. We need to accelerate the plan." His blood ran cold. The central threat wasn't just his company anymore. It was his children. And the woman saving them, from the pool, from neglect, was the same one who'd just become Victoria's next target. Alexander had to decide, reveal himself and risk everything, or stay hidden and watch the woman he was falling for walk straight into the crossfire. He chose the shadows. For now. But as he watched Elena tuck the twins in later that evening, singing them a lullaby that twisted his gut with memories of Sophia, he felt the first crack in his resolve. This wasn't just about trust anymore. It was about survival. And love, unexpected, terrifying, had just entered the battlefield. Yo, story fam. If that twist just flipped your world upside down like it did mine, drop a mind blown in the comments and tell me what city you're repping while your jaw's on the floor. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now so you catch every heartbeat of this ride. The next 3 weeks were a slow-motion car crash Alexander couldn't look away from. Every dawn he was on his knees in the dirt, pretending to weed lavender beds while actually watching Victoria's every move through mirrored sunglasses. Every dusk he was in the greenhouse, pretending to repot orchids while actually memorizing the license plates of the black SUVs that now parked behind the estate at 2 a.m. And every single day Elena Harrington walked straight into the kill zone wearing nothing but a gray maid's dress and a smile that could stop wars. He hated himself for noticing how the fabric clung to her hips when she bent to pick up Lily's toys. Hated himself more for the way his pulse spiked every time she laughed at something Oliver babbled. He kept telling himself it was surveillance. Protection. Nothing more. Then came the night of the charity masquerade. Victoria had demanded the entire staff stay late to polish silver for 200 guests. Alexander, still Alex the gardener, was relegated to hauling ice sculptures through the service corridors. He was wrestling a swan carved from frozen roses when Elena appeared, arms full of crystal flutes, cheeks flushed from running. Their eyes locked. For one heartbeat the corridor was empty except for the two of them and the thud of his traitor heart. She opened her mouth, maybe to say thank you again for the pool, maybe to ask why he always disappeared when Victoria was near. When Victoria's voice cracked like a whip behind them. "Elena, darling." A word. Victoria stood silhouetted at the end of the hall in a backless crimson gown, mask dangling from manicured fingers like a threat. Elena stiffened. "Yes, Miss Langford?" Victoria crooked a finger. "Walk with me." Alexander's blood turned to antifreeze. He knew that tone. Had heard it the night Sophia died. Elena glanced back at him. Just once. Eyes wide with something that looked a hell of a lot like fear. Then she followed Victoria into the West Wing. The one with the locked doors and the cameras Alexander hadn't been able to bypass yet. He dropped the swan. Ice shattered across marble. He was moving before the echo died. He took the servants' stairs 3 at a time, heart hammering so loud he almost missed the voices drifting from the cracked library door. "You've become a problem," Victoria was saying, voice silk over razor blades. "The children ask for you constantly. Alexander notices. That simply won't do." Alexander pressed himself to the wall, gun heavy against his spine. Elena's reply was steady. "I'm just the maid, Miss Langford. I do my job." A soft laugh. "Oh, sweet girl. You're so much more than that, aren't you?" Silence. Then the unmistakable click of a hammer being cocked. Alexander's vision went red. He was 2 seconds from kicking the door in when Elena spoke again, voice suddenly different. Lower. Older. Familiar in a way that punched the air from his lungs. "Put the gun down, Victoria. You're making a scene." Alexander froze. Because that wasn't Elena's voice. That was Sophia's. His dead wife's cadence, exact, down to the way she clipped the T in Victoria's name. Through the crack he saw Elena reach up, slowly, and pull off the curly brown wig she'd worn for 6 months. Blonde hair spilled down her back like molten gold. She removed the brown contact lenses with steady fingers, revealing eyes the exact shade of winter sky. Sophia's eyes. Alexander's knees nearly gave out. Victoria's gun wavered. You're supposed to be dead. Elena. No, Sophia, smiled the same smile that used to bring him to his knees in their bedroom at 3 a.m. Death was temporary, she said. Finding out who pushed me off that balcony? That took 4 years. Victoria's face twisted into something inhuman. I'll finish what I started. She raised the gun. Sophia moved faster. She twisted Victoria's wrist until bones cracked, kneeing her in the stomach so hard the other woman folded like wet paper. The gun clattered across the rug. Sophia scooped it up, pressed it to Victoria's temple. For years ago you took everything from me, she whispered. My name, my children, my life. Her finger tightened. Now I take yours. Alexander couldn't breathe, couldn't move, because the woman he'd buried, the woman whose grave he visited every Sunday, was standing 10 feet away, alive, breathing, magnificent. And she was about to become a murderer. He burst through the door. Sophia! She spun, gun swinging toward him. Their eyes locked. The world stopped. Her face crumpled. Alex! The gun slipped from her fingers. She took 1 step. 2. Then she was running. He caught her as her legs gave out, crushing her to his chest so hard he felt her ribs protest. She was shaking, sobbing into his neck like the night they got engaged. He couldn't speak, could only hold her tighter, breathing her in, gardenias and gunpowder and 4 years of stolen life. Victoria laughed from the floor, blood bubbling on her lips. How touching. The happy couple reunited. She coughed. Too bad the kids won't live to see it. Sophia went rigid in his arms. Alexander's head snapped up. What did you just say? Victoria grinned through red teeth. Tick-tock, darling. The nanny you fired last month? She still has a key, a wet chuckle, and a grudge, and 2 million reasons to make sure your heirs disappear tonight. Sophia's eyes met his, wild, terrified. Alexander looked at the woman he'd mourned for 4 years. At the monster bleeding on his library rug. At the clock ticking on the mantel. Then he made the only decision that mattered. He pulled Sophia to her feet. We get our kids, he said. Then we end this. Together. Her fingers laced through his, scarred from garden tools, stained with Victoria's blood. Together, she echoed. They stepped over Victoria's groaning body and ran. Behind them, the masquerade music swelled, violins screaming like sirens. Ahead of them, the nursery wing was too quiet. And somewhere in the walls, a bomb's timer had already started counting down. They sprinted through the service corridors like the mansion itself was trying to swallow them whole. Sophia's bare feet slapped the cold marble, Alexander's boots thundering beside her. Every chandelier they passed flickered, lights stuttering like a dying heartbeat. They hit the nursery wing at 11:57 p.m. The door hung open. Inside, 2 empty cribs. 2 tiny nightlights spinning lazy stars across the ceiling. 1 post-it note stuck to Lily's pillow in Victoria's looping red handwriting. Catch me if you can, Mommy. Sophia screamed. A sound ripped straight from her soul, and Alexander caught her before she hit the floor. No. No, no, no. She clawed at the crib rails, nails splintering. They were here an hour ago. I checked. I tucked them in. Alexander's phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. Victoria's voice, weak gurgling but triumphant, slithered through the line. Looking for something? Alexander's grip turned white on the phone. Where are they? Safe, she sang. For now. Basement vault. The one you built for your little offshore secrets. Combination is Sophia's death date. How poetic. Sophia's eyes snapped to his, pure ice. Victoria coughed blood. But here's the fun part. The nanny wired the room. C4. Enough to turn your precious heirs into confetti at the stroke of midnight. You have. A wet laugh. 2 minutes. The line went dead. Sophia was already moving. She shoved past him, racing for the hidden staircase that led to the sub-basement. Alexander followed, lungs burning. They hit the vault door at 11 hours 58 minutes and 43 seconds. Steel. Biometric lock. Keypad. Sophia punched in March 17th, 21, the night she died. The lock chirped red. Denied. She tried again, fingers shaking so hard she missed numbers. Alexander grabbed her wrists. Breathe. Look at me. Her eyes were wild. It's wrong. That was the date. No, he said, voice cracking. That was the date the world thinks you died. He entered March 16th, 21. The real date. The night she'd come to him covered in blood, whispering, I have to disappear or she'll kill the babies next. The vault hissed open. Inside, Lily and Oliver huddled on a velvet couch, blindfolded, gagged, wrists zip-tied. A digital timer on the table beside them blinked 1 minute and 12 seconds. Red wires snaked into 4 bricks of C4 taped to the walls. Sophia flew to the kids, ripping off blindfolds. Mommy's here, babies, mommy's here. Alexander dropped to his knees beside the bomb. He wasn't a soldier. Wasn't Yodi. But he'd built this vault. He knew every inch. He traced the wires, saw the trick immediately. The timer was a decoy. The real trigger was pressure-sensitive flooring. Lift the kids equals boom. Sophia froze, realizing the same thing. Their eyes locked over the twins' heads. 11 seconds. Alexander made the choice without thinking. He scooped both children into his arms, triggering the floor plates, and hurled himself backward through the vault door. The explosion roared behind him like God's own fury. Heat. Light. Pain. Then darkness. When he opened his eyes, he was on his back in the corridor, ears ringing, ceiling tiles raining down. Sophia was on top of him, shielding the kids with her body, hair singed, face streaked with soot. Lily and Oliver were screaming, but alive. Sophia's tears dripped onto his cheek. You idiot, she sobbed. You beautiful, reckless idiot. He laughed, actually laughed, through the blood in his mouth. Had to keep my promise, he rasped. Never let anyone hurt you again. Any of you. She kissed him then, hard, desperate, tasting of smoke and 4 lost years. When they pulled apart, sirens were screaming closer. But Victoria wasn't done. Her voice crackled over the mansion's intercom, every speaker in every room. Touching, she wheezed. Really? But you're forgetting one thing. A pause. I still have the kill switch. Every light in the house died. Then the gas began to hiss from the vents, colorless, odorless. Sophia's eyes widened. Saren, she whispered. She's flooding the estate. Alexander looked at his family, his real family, trapped in a tomb of his own making. And for the first time in 4 years, he had absolutely no plan. Only one truth. If they were going to die tonight, they'd die together. He pulled Sophia and the twins against his chest. Closed his eyes. Waited for the end. But the end never came. Instead, every vent slammed shut with a metallic shriek. Emergency lights flared red. A new voice, calm, female, familiar, crackled over the intercom. Gas neutralized. Mansion locked down. Victoria Langford in custody. Alexander's head snapped up. The voice continued. Alexander. Sophia. Get to the roof. Chopper's waiting. Sophia's breath hitched. Because she knew that voice. They both did. It belonged to the one person they'd trusted with the secret 4 years ago. The person who'd faked Sophia's death. The person who'd just saved their lives. Move, the voice barked. Or I swear I'll drag you out myself. Alexander looked at Sophia. She looked at him. Then they ran, carrying their children toward the only person left who could still destroy them. Or save them. Comment, I'm not okay, if you just screamed at your screen. Tell me where you're watching from while your soul leaves your body. Subscribe right now. The helicopter blades were still spinning when they burst onto the roof. A woman in black tactical gear stood beside the open door, rifle slung, face half lit by the strobing tail light. Special Agent Reyes. The FBI handler who'd staged Sophia's death 4 years ago. The only person alive who knew Elena Harrington had never existed. Reyes didn't smile. In. Now. Alexander handed Lily up first, then Oliver. Sophia climbed in after them, reaching back for his hand. That's when the sniper round took Reyes in the throat. Blood sprayed across the windshield like red rain. Reyes dropped without a sound. The chopper pilot screamed, yanking the stick. Alexander dove, tackling Sophia and the kids to the floor as bullets stitched across the fuselage. Another round punched through the roof, missed Lily's head by inches. Alexander looked out the open door. Victoria, standing on the widow's walk 3 stories below, wrapped in a blood-soaked robe, aiming a hunting rifle with the steadiness of a woman who no longer had anything to lose. She smiled up at them, teeth red, and mouthed 2 words. Goodbye. The pilot banked hard, trying to climb. Too late. Victoria's final bullet severed the fuel line. The engine coughed once. then died. They fell, 300 feet straight down into the black ocean of the estate's rear lawn. Alexander had 1 second, to make the choice. He kicked open the opposite door, wrapped his body around Sophia and the twins, and jumped. They hit the grass at terminal velocity. He took every ounce of the impact. Bones shattered. Vision exploded white. When the darkness cleared, he was staring up at a sky on fire, the chopper crashing 50 yards away, blooming into a mushroom of flame. Sophia was screaming his name, but he couldn't feel his legs, couldn't move. Lily and Oliver were crying, crawling toward him across the grass. Sophia's hands were on his face, slick with his blood. "Stay with me, Alex. Stay." He tried to speak. Only blood came out. Sirens everywhere now, real ones. FBI. SWAT. Local PD. Agents swarmed the lawn, weapons raised. Victoria was already cuffed, laughing like a hyena as they dragged her past the burning wreckage. She locked eyes with Sophia. "This isn't over," she spat. "I have friends. Powerful ones. They'll finish what I started." An agent shoved her into a van. The doors slammed. Sophia didn't even look. She was too busy pressing her forehead to Alexander's, whispering, "Don't you dare leave me again." But the paramedics were already there, ripping her away. "Massive internal bleeding," one shouted. "We're losing him." They loaded him onto a stretcher. Sophia tried to climb in after him. An agent blocked her. "Ma'am, you and the children need to be debriefed." She punched him in the face. Broke his nose. Then climbed into the ambulance anyway, clutching Lily and Oliver like weapons. As the doors closed, Alexander's heart monitor flatlined. Sophia screamed, a sound that shredded the night. The paramedic hit him with the paddles. Once. Twice. On the third shock, Alexander's eyes snapped open. He looked straight at Sophia. Mouthed one word through the oxygen mask. "Live." Then the monitor flatlined again. This time it stayed flat. Sophia collapsed over his body, sobbing so hard the gurney shook. Lily and Oliver wailed, reaching for their daddy. The ambulance doors slammed shut. And somewhere in the distance, Victoria Langford started singing through the bars of her prison van. A lullaby. The same one Sophia used to sing to the twins. Darkness swallowed everything. They pronounced him dead at 12:47 a.m. Sophia refused to let them cover his face. She sat in the morgue for 6 hours, holding his cold hand, whispering every secret she'd never gotten to tell him. That she'd never stopped loving him. That she'd watched him every day from kitchen windows, dying a little more each time he smiled at Elena. That she'd planned to reveal herself the night Victoria forced her hand. At 6:58 a.m., an agent finally pulled her away. They took the twins for protective custody. Sophia fought, screamed, until they sedated her. When she woke up, she was in a safe house. Alone. No children. No Alexander. Just a single manila folder on the table. Inside, photos of Lily and Oliver in a concrete room. A note in Victoria's handwriting. "They're safe. For now. Come alone. Or they die like Daddy did." Sophia stared at the ceiling. Felt something inside her die forever. Then something colder was born. She stood up, walked to the mirror, and looked the monster in the eye. Victoria wanted a war? Fine. But she'd forgotten one thing. Sophia Wentworth had already died once. This time, she was coming back as something worse. Cold storage room. 3:12 a.m. City morgue. The attendant stepped out for a smoke. That's all the time Alexander needed. He ripped the chest leads off, sat up, and vomited blood and saline onto the tile. Every bone in his lower spine screamed. Ribs cracked like dry twigs. But the heart they'd stopped 3 times? That heart was still beating. Because the dead billionaire had paid the coroner $20 million 6 years ago to install a hidden defibrillator protocol for exactly this scenario. He dragged the crash cart closer, slammed 300 Giles into his own chest to reset the rhythm, then yanked the 4 lines out of his arms. The morgue door hissed open again. Sophia stood there in black fatigues, hair braided tight, eyes feral. For one heartbeat they just stared. Then she crossed the room in 3 strides and punched him in the face. Hard. His head snapped back against the steel table. "You died on me," she snarled, voice breaking. "You left me." He tasted blood, grinned through it. "Never." She kissed him like she was trying to crawl inside his skin. He kissed her back like she was oxygen. When they broke apart, both were crying. "Victoria has the kids," she whispered. Concrete room. Live feed. "She wants me alone at the old pier warehouse in 40 minutes. Alexander wiped the blood from her lip with his thumb. Then we give her exactly what she wants. He reached under the gurney, pulled out a duffel. Inside, 2 Kevlar vests, suppressed pistols, and a tablet already streaming Victoria's feed. Lily and Oliver were curled on a dirty mattress, clutching each other, whispering "Mama" over and over. Sophia's knees buckled. Alexander caught her. "Look at me." He cupped her face. "We are not losing them again. Not ever." He tapped the screen. A red dot blinked on Victoria's location. "She thinks I'm dead. That you're broken. That makes her sloppy." Sophia's eyes hardened into something lethal. "What's the play?" He smiled, cold, beautiful, terrifying. We stopped playing. 38 minutes later. Pier 19 warehouse. Salt, air, and rust, and the kind of dark that swallows screams. Sophia walked in first, alone, hands raised, exactly as ordered. Victoria waited in the center, flanked by 4 mercenaries and a wall of C, 4 wired to the kid's mattress. She clapped slowly. "Bravo, darling. Right on time." Sophia's voice was pure ice. "Let them go." Victoria tilted her head. "Or what? Your husband's rotting in a drawer." Sophia smiled. And the lights died. Every bulb exploded in a shower of sparks. Emergency strobes kicked in, blood red. Alexander dropped from the rafters like a ghost, landing behind the first merc. Silence shot center mass. Second merc turned, too late. Alexander's knife opened his throat. Sophia was already moving. She tackled Victoria, slamming her face first into the concrete. The remaining 2 guards raised rifles. Alexander shot one in the knee, the other in the hand. Both dropped screaming. Victoria laughed through a mouthful of blood. "You're too late," she wheezed. "The bomb's on a dead man's switch. I let go of this." She opened her fist to reveal a small remote. "And your baby's become red mist." Sophia pressed her boot to Victoria's throat. "Then don't let go." Alexander was at the mattress in 3 strides, cutting the zip ties, scooping Lily and Oliver into his arms. They clung to him, sobbing "Daddy" like a prayer. He carried them to Sophia. Victoria's eyes widened. You were dead." Alexander kissed each twin's forehead, then looked down at the woman who'd tried to destroy his family. "Death was temporary," he said. Sophia took the remote from Victoria's shaking fingers. Crushed it under her heel. Nothing happened, because Alexander had already disarmed the bomb 40 seconds ago. Victoria screamed, a sound of pure animal rage. Sophia leaned close. "You took 4 years from me," she whispered. "I'm taking the rest of yours." She zip-tied Victoria's wrists, gagged her with her own silk scarf. Then she stood, turned to her family. Alexander was on his knees, both kids wrapped around him like vines. Sophia dropped beside them. 4 bodies became one. They stayed like that until the FBI tactical team breached the doors, guns raised, shouting "Clear." But the war was already over. Victoria was dragged away screaming. The warehouse lights came back on. And for the first time in 4 years, the Wentworth family breathed the same air under the same sky. Alexander looked at Sophia. She looked at him. Lily reached up and touched both their faces. "Home?" she asked. Alexander kissed Sophia's tears. "Home," he promised. The billionaire went undercover as a gardener, until his maid saved his kids from his evil fiancée. Part 8, Climactic Resolution. Federal Courthouse, Manhattan. 3 months later. Maximum security courtroom. Victoria Langford sat in chains that cost more than most people's houses, orange jumpsuit clashing violently with the diamond studs she'd somehow bribed a guard to let her keep. The gallery was packed, press, victims' families, every Wentworth employee who'd ever been terrorized by her smile. Alexander stood at the prosecution table in a midnight blue suit, spine straight, eyes locked on the woman who'd tried to murder his entire world. Sophia stood beside him, no longer hiding. Blonde hair in a low knot, ice blue dress that made her look like a blade made of winter. Lily and Oliver sat in the front row with their new nanny, ex-Delta Force, 6 feet 4 inches, named Teddy. Each twin clutching a tiny plush rose Alexander had sewn himself in the hospital while his spine healed. The judge asked Victoria if she had any final statement before sentencing. She rose slowly, chains singing. Smiled like a shark. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, voice syrupy, "you've heard fairy tales for weeks. A dead wife who came back. A billionaire playing peasant. A maid who was never a maid." She turned to Sophia. "But let's tell the truth, shall we? This woman faked her own death. Abandoned her children. Committed fraud on a scale that should put her away for life." The gallery murmured. Alexander's jaw flexed. Sophia didn't blink. Victoria leaned forward. And him? She jerked her chin at Alexander. He hid assets, evaded taxes, bribed officials to fake a corpse. They're the criminals. Not me. The judge banged the gavel. Victoria ignored it. She raised her cuffed hands and pressed a tiny button on the underside of her watch. Every screen in the courtroom flared to life. Security feeds. Live. From inside the Wentworth estate. The nursery. Lily and Oliver's bedroom. Empty. A red timer appeared. 10 minutes. Victoria's smile went nuclear. 10 minutes, she announced. That's how long your precious heirs have before the gas I installed in their new safe room turns them into angels. The courtroom erupted. Alexander lunged. Sophia beat him to it. She vaulted the rail, tackled Victoria over the defendant's table, and slammed her face into the wood so hard teeth skittered across the floor. FBI agents swarmed. Sophia didn't let go. She ripped the watch off Victoria's wrist, crushed it under her heel. Then she looked up at the nearest camera and spoke directly to whoever Victoria had paid to pull the trigger. Listen carefully, she said, voice calm, lethal. You have two choices. 1. You open those vents right now and let my children breathe. 2. I walk out of this courthouse, find every single person you love, and I make what Victoria did to me look like a spa day. Silence. Then the timer on screen froze. Turned green. A new feed popped up. Teddy carrying both twins out of the nursery, oxygen masks already on. Thumbs up to the camera. The courtroom exhaled as one. Victoria screamed, thrashing. Sophia stood, smoothed her dress, and addressed the judge. Your Honor, the defense rests. The gavel fell like a gunshot. Victoria Langford, you are hereby sentenced to life in Supermax, no parole, with special circumstances. Solitary confinement, no visitors, no commissary, no sunlight. Victoria lunged again, chain snapping taut. Sophia caught her by the throat, leaned in, and whispered something that made Victoria's eyes go wide with pure terror. Whatever it was, Victoria started sobbing. Not acting. Real broken, soul-deep sobs. They dragged her away, still crying. Alexander met Sophia at the rail. He didn't speak. Just pulled her into his arms and kissed her like the world was ending and beginning at once. The gallery exploded into applause. Cameras flashed. Lily and Oliver broke free from Teddy, sprinting down the aisle. Daddy! Mommy! Alexander dropped to his knees. Caught them both. For bodies collided in the middle of the courtroom. Sophia buried her face in Alexander's neck. He buried his in her hair. And for the first time in 4 years, no one was pretending. No one was hiding. No one was afraid. Later, outside on the courthouse steps, reporters shouted questions. Alexander raised one hand. Silence fell. He looked straight into the cameras. I have one statement. He lifted Sophia's hand, kissed her knuckles, then hoisted both twins onto his hips. We're going home. Then he walked down those steps, family surrounding him like armor, and never looked back. 1 year later. Late September. The estate smelled of fresh-cut grass, wood smoke, and the vanilla candles Sophia insisted on burning in every room now that the windows were never locked again. Alexander stood barefoot in the greenhouse he'd rebuilt with his own hands, glass walls fogged from the heat of 1,000 blooming roses. He wore faded jeans and the same flannel shirt he'd worn the first day he pretended to be just Alex. In his pocket, a tiny velvet box that had lived against his heart for 11 months. Outside, fairy lights twinkled in the trees. A long table stretched across the lawn, groaning under platters of barbecue and 3-tiered cakes. Every person who'd ever worked for them, gardeners, cooks, security, nannies, sat shoulder to shoulder with FBI agents, journalists who'd become friends, and Teddy, the 6 feet 4 inches nanny who was currently letting Lily paint his fingernails sparkly purple. Music played low, old jazz, the kind that made Sophia sway without thinking. Alexander watched her through the glass. She was on the grass in a simple white sundress, barefoot, hair loose and wild, spinning Oliver in circles until they both collapsed laughing. Lily ran over, tackled them, and suddenly it was a pile of giggles and golden sunlight. Alexander's chest ached so hard he had to press a fist to it. This was the life Victoria had tried to burn to ash. This was the life they'd clawed back from the grave. He stepped out of the greenhouse. The music cut. Every head turned. Sophia looked up, eyes narrowing in that playful way that still made his knees weak. Alex, she called. What are you up to? He crossed the lawn slowly, feeling every scar, every healed fracture, every second he'd almost lost this. When he reached her, He dropped to one knee in the grass. Lily gasped. Oliver's eyes went comically wide. Sophia froze. Alexander pulled out the box. Opened it. Inside, not some 10-carat monstrosity. Just a thin band of rose gold woven with tiny diamonds shaped like forget-me-nots. The first flower he'd ever handed her over the hedge. His voice cracked on the first word. Sophia Grace Wentworth, 4 years ago I lost you. 365 days ago, I got you back. Every single morning since, I've woken up terrified it was a dream. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't move. I don't want to spend one more second of this life without you wearing my ring. Without you carrying my name, the real one. Without you knowing that every breath I take from now on is yours. He looked at the twins. Lily. Oliver. Come here, babies. They ran to him. He pulled 2 smaller boxes from his pocket. Inside each, a tiny rose gold ring with a single diamond. Mommy's been your guardian angel since the day you were born, he told them. Now Daddy wants to make it official. Will you let me marry your mommy again, so we can be a family forever? Lily squealed so loud the birds scattered. Oliver nodded so hard he nearly toppled over. Sophia was sobbing now, hands over her mouth. Alexander looked up at her. Say yes, sophomore. Say yes, and I swear on every star in that sky, I will spend the rest of my life making you laugh louder than you cry. She dropped to her knees in the grass, cupped his face, and kissed him so hard they fell backward into the flowers. Yes, she whispered against his mouth. 1,000 times yes. The entire lawn erupted, cheers, whistles, Teddy the nanny actually crying into a sparkly handkerchief. Lily and Oliver tackled them both, shouting, Mommy and Daddy forever. Alexander slid the ring onto Sophia's finger. She slid the tiny ones onto the twins. Then she looked at him, eyes shining brighter than the diamonds. Take me home, Mr. Wentworth. He stood, scooped her up bridal style, and carried her across the lawn while every person they loved threw rose petals like confetti. That night, after the party died down and the kids were asleep in their new beds, under a ceiling painted with glow-in-the-dark stars, Alexander carried Sophia over the threshold of the master bedroom they'd finally reclaimed. He laid her on the bed they hadn't shared in 4 years, kissed every scar she'd earned protecting their family, whispered every promise he'd saved up for a lifetime. And when the sun came up the next morning, it rose on a house that no longer had locks on the doors, secrets in the walls, or ghosts in the garden. Just 4 people who'd walked through hell holding hands, and came out the other side holding each other tighter. Hey beautiful soul who stayed with me to the very last page. Drop a rose in the comments if this story just carved its name on your heart. Tell me where you're watching from while you wipe happy tears on your sleeve. If you want more love stories that break you open and put you back together stronger, smash that subscribe button and turn on the bell, because I'm never stopping. This was for every one of you who believes second chances are real. They are. I promise. See you in the next love story that refuses to let you go. Until then, keep choosing love. It wins every time. All my heart, your storyteller.